ready to tackle the main navigation functions. Right up at the top of this web page, we're looking at this in Dreamweaver, we have a division called Button 1. And inside that division, if you will recall, we have an SVG graphic that has an ID of SVG1. Knowing those IDs, we can address both of them with a jQuery hover function. If you'll go to the source code, down at the bottom, we have to add some jQuery. And we're adding that in our JavaScript block. It really does not matter. This is a function that is triggered by a mouse event, so it really doesn't matter where I place it in our code. First of all, you always start with a $sign, and then we address in parentheses what division we are talking about. We're talking about the button 1 division, dot, and the jQuery function. The built-in function is called hover, and then in parentheses you must use this syntax, function, and then two more parentheses and a brace. Now, what is it going to do with addressing jQuery again? So we use a $sign. We are now going to address the element that has the ID SVG1. That is the SVG graphic, and we will make it fade out, and we make it fade out instantly, and then we separate with a dot, and we're adding a CSS function. We are going to change the fill property of the SVG button to this particular color. Then we separate with a dot, and we're going to make that whole SVG1 element fade in, and we're choosing 500 milliseconds, which is about a half of a second. This is when the mouse rolls over that button 1 division. When the mouse rolls out of the button division, we end with a brace, a comma, and we continue with a function, and we add a $sign because it's jQuery, and we are addressing the element SVG1. We'll make it fade out. We'll change its CSS property, its fill property, back to the original color, and then we make it fade in. If you've done all of that and saved your page, if you view that inside a browser, you'll see what happens. It's going to take a minute. Here we go. This button has not been addressed yet, but when I move over here, you can see it gradually change, and you can of course change the time of that. Now the only trick you have to do now is complete that process. And now we're going to, we've addressed the hover function, but now we're going to address what happens when we click the button. Now we're going to work with the click mouse event for button 1, which is this particular button right here. But before we do that, you'll recall that way at the bottom in our footer, we have put all of our links as well for all of those buttons. So before we go a little bit further, we better link each of these elements here. So I'm going to link home to a $sign. That makes it a link, but it doesn't do anything. And now I have to do one more neat little trick. Here is the home we're looking at the source code, and here's the home word, and here's the link just in front of it. Inside the opening ahref tag, I'm going to give it an ID, and I'm going to call it button 1A because it corresponds with button 1 at the top. Now we're ready to address the click mouse event with jQuery for button 1A and button 1. Now we'll jump back to the JavaScript section in our home page, and right here is where we added the hover function for button 1. Button 1A, that's the link at the bottom, doesn't need a hover function. That's already covered when we set link rollover properties for words, for text. But now we'll address the click function. Here's how. We'll add a function directly below button 1 hover functions. And this is jQuery, so we start with a $sign, and inside parentheses we are addressing button 1, comma, button 1A. We'll finish the quote. dot click, because we're addressing the click function of jQuery. We open it up with a function, and there's a very special syntax here. I hope you can see that. And then in jQuery, that's the $, with page one container, that was the container that held all of the elements for page one, we have to make the display none, so it's absolutely gone. We have to do that for every container except content. Content, we have to change its CSS property. So we address the content container, the division, .css, the display property, we make it block, which means that the content division will be visible and will show. Next, we very quickly hide it, .hide, and we do that instantly, 0 milliseconds, and then we fade in the home page. And this will work every time the button at the top is clicked and button 1A at the bottom. So we'll save it and check just to show you how that works. So now I've saved it. If you'll come back to to Internet Explorer, you'll see what happens. Not only is there a rollover effect, it's still loading, it's lagging a little bit because I'm filming, but not only is there a rollover effect when I roll in and roll out, but when I click the page, this content container will fade 0 quickly, instantly, and then fade in gradually. A very, very neat effect. Now all we have to do is copy that function, adjust some of the parameters, the name, the identifiers, and we can make each page control each container. To continue with each of the buttons, it just requires a little bit of concentration and copying and pasting. All I did was copy my button 1 hover function and the button 1A click function and paste it in again and then modify its names. For the hover, I said button 2, and I'm addressing the graphic ID SVG2. And for the button 2 and button 2A click, I made content display invisible. I made page 2, page 3, and the resource displays invisible by setting display to none. And you'll recall, setting the display to none not only makes it invisible, it makes it absolutely zero space in terms of dimension. And with page 1, using the CSS properties, I changed display to block, which makes it visible. I hit it instantly in 0 seconds. And then this time, instead of a fade in function, I used the jQuery show function. Now, again, your syntax must be absolutely spot on. It's got to be perfect in order for it to work. Hopefully you can see this on this page. If you can't, you can of course look this up. jQuery is very well documented online. Well, let's view what we have. If I save the page and then move to Internet Explorer, again, my computer's lagging just a little bit because I'm making this video. But anyway, you'll see that if I click page 1, the button, I have a hover function, but when I click it, the show function loads all of the content that is in the page 1 container. If I click home, it'll bring me right back to the home container. Now I'm going to open this page 1 container up one more time just to show you. Obviously there's a slight problem. The page 1 text is not really centered in this small banner division. To fix that small banner text alignment problem, I'll look for the page 1 container, and inside the page 1 container, I'm in the home page, but I'm in the page 1 container, I can find where it said H3 page 1, and all I'm going to do is make that heading a little bit smaller, and I'm going to make it heading 4. I could also work with, first I better save, I'll save all. I could also work with the info styles sheet. And for small banner where it says padding top, I'll change that from 2 pixels to 0 pixels. Now, File, Save All, and now if you view the page, I think we will have corrected that problem. So if I click on page 1, there's my page 1 header, and it fits perfectly, and this will take us back. Of course, I'm going to make that same adjustment for each of these buttons as well.